Hi everyone, Sarah Barnes Humphrey here of Let's Talk Supply Chain, and we're going to dive into WMS and TMS with Bryant and Blake. How you doing?
Living the dream.
Good,
Awesome.
Sarah. Thanks for having us.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Hey, Blake Corum with Manhattan. I'm a product manager for us with ownership over Manhattan Active Warehouse Management. Been with the company 14 years and really enjoyed every minute of it.
I'm Brian Smith. I'm the product manager for our TMS applications. I'm responsible for product strategy and the roadmap.
Great. Now we're going to be talking also about unification. This is something I've been hearing a lot about. I really like the word. I always use the word collaboration, but unification is kind of taking it to a whole new level. So Blake, Manhattan has pioneered this concept of supply chain unification. Why is it so important?
Yeah, no, it's a fabulous question. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, our supply chain solutions, historically speaking, were independent systems deployed on their own environments, kind of siloed within themselves. And obviously, over time, we got to the point where they could at least talk to one another, get to an integration level, right? And even that's what our pre-Manhattan Active solutions did. They at least spoke the same language, they communicated to a certain degree. But even with an integrated solution, you have suboptimal execution. Right? With a unified solution and unification, it's a single application, right? When we talk about transportation, warehouse, and within the warehouse, labor, slotting, and of course, in between those two, yard management, all of those components learn from each other, know from each other, and can leverage the insights, intelligence of those other solutions to make better decisions that improve everyone's performance.
What about, I think there's a visibility component too. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because visibility has kind of been a buzzword. Everybody's using it. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's different levels of visibility. So I'll hit on a few and hopefully we'll hit the answer you want. So visibility from a certain aspect is just literally the look and feel of the system. And the answer there is it's the same system, right? The look and feel of WM, transportation, yard are all synonymous. So any of our transportation users that are trying to get more insights about the warehouse can easily do that and navigate because they're very comfortable with the solution. It's the one they work with as well, and vice versa, right? Now, visibility at a different level would be understanding just overall execution and how we're performing. And so having the accurate insights of labor, feeding all the way up from the individual user to the transportation plan and how we're executing to that offers insights to people that they frankly just could never get even in the integrated system.
Right.
Yeah. And the transportation users, you're working with a single application, your single architecture. So a shipment that is planned in TMS is the exact same shipment that the warehouse is executing.
Mm-hmm.
So the transportation users get to actually look into the warehouse and see how am I progressing and actually loading this trailer? What stage am I in? Are they done? Are they going through the yard now? Are they checking out? All that information is being fed back to the transportation user. And similarly, the workflows that happen within transportation, it might be an inbound shipment. We're starting to get ETA information.
Mm-hmm.
We're feeding that transportation information back to the warehouse users. So now they have more data and insights into what to expect. Whether a shipment is late or in transit, they're starting to get that information so that they can better plan how to execute within the warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think there's a Schneider Electric example. I don't know which one of you two wants to talk about that, but I think it showcases how unified solutions benefit customers.
Yeah, Schneider, and we probably could both speak to some degree. So Schneider is a global partner of ours, fantastic company to work with, but massive in orchestration, right? So their needs vary warehouse to warehouse, country to country, et cetera. And so it's from a warehousing perspective, it's great to see the flexibility of the solution, be able to pivot as needed to kind of fill all those gaps as they require. And then as that feeds into their transportation needs, we've been able to see some pretty seamless execution there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the beauty of the architecture is that it's componentized. So it allows them to scale up with the volume that they need in certain regions, whereas other regions that they're executing is maybe lower volume, but also the distribution of the network that they have is they may be going through waterways or rail or intermodal or truckload, whatever the case may be, but That's not true of every region that they operate in. So there's little nuance with each part of their deployment. And the architecture that we have allows them to scale up and scale down to the perfect size that they need.
Flexibility is the key to that part, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so at this conference, Manhattan has added supply chain planning, right, to its unified supply chain vision. I keep using this word, unification, unified. I love it.
Keep going.
You love it. I
Yes.
love it. Okay, hopefully you all love it too. How does combining supply chain planning and execution strengthen the overall solution when it comes to WMS, TMS, bringing everything together?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously from an execution perspective, we've been honing that knife for a few years now, right? It's got a very sharp edge and we can really break bread, right? Now that's as well as good as it can be, but having those proper foresights into what is going to happen and having the proper forecast and understanding plays a huge factor, especially in today's labor market. From a warehousing perspective, especially, turnover in DCs is a very hot topic these days. Retention of employees, trying to get them engaged. So anything we can do to better forecast how and when we need the right types of employees, right types of users, especially when you need skilled labor, et cetera, is just the more the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I talked about the labor planning, that the planning and execution coming together, the benefits it can provide. But at least from a transportation perspective, when we're looking at planning and execution, it's bi-directional.
Mm-hmm.
So we are feeding information from the transportation plan back to the buyers and the planners upstream, so they get a better sense of what the transportation cost is, because transportation and labor ultimately factor into the landed cost of what the buyers are buying. And in the traditional world, the buyers just want to buy the inventory at the lowest price, which is all good and well, but that might come at a premium. You have to pay more for labor. You might have to pay more for transportation. They don't always have that insights to make those trade-offs upstream. So we're feeding information not only from warehouse and transportation, we're feeding it upstream into the plan, but also once the plan has been accrued and we have a sense of what we want to buy and what we want to ship, that information is bi-directional coming back to warehouse. So now I can start planning my labor according to the plans that are coming from demand signals, but I can also plan my transportation with the capacity that I need to procure from my carriers, which if from a transportation perspective, the more lead time that you can give your carrier partners, the better rates and service that they can provide you. And, you know, in a traditional transportation world, the less lead time that you have, the more that you're going to pay in transportation costs. You see that with expedited freight and so on and so forth. So having that accurate plan, but also having the visibility upstream into what the capacity needs are, you know, day over day, week over week, not only helps you in terms of lowering your costs, but it actually helps you be a better shipper of choice.
Well, and also transit times,
Yeah.
right? The buyer's understanding how long it's going to take. The sales team even understanding when they're talking to a client how long it's going to take, what that cost is going to be.
And when you're making those promises to your customers and your consumers, I mean, you don't want to mess that up, because we've made e-commerce purchase. We're expecting a delivery to our house at a certain day. It didn't come until the next day. And how disappointed were we that it didn't come when we said? So, you know, being able to fulfill that promise and understanding those lead times and those transit times, you know, it really adds value not only to downstream processes, but also upstream stakeholders.
Yeah, data sharing upstream and downstream. I love that. So Bryant, what makes true unification possible at a technology level? How does that impact the customers?
Yeah, so, you know, we've been talking a lot about the business benefit, and some of the questions we get is, well, how do you actually do it?
Mm-hmm.
And what we've been talking about and what we've been socializing is the ability to have these components. And these components work together through a microservice architecture. And that's how, when you're building out and scaling out your workflow, you're leveraging and turning on these components that you need. You're not turning on the components you don't need. So if I need to invoke optimization for my planning, if I need to invoke labor planning for my warehouse, if I need to invoke, moving trailers through my yard, I have the ability to do that through the different components that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't use yard, if I don't use a component, you just simply don't leverage that component. It's part of the architecture, but it's not lit up, so to speak.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine like a brick sidewalk, you have different bricks laying in that sidewalk. It's good to have all those bricks there so that you don't trip and fall, but you're not using every single brick as you're walking through it. So,
But also if you're scaling,
yeah,
right? You can turn it off for
Right.
now, and then you trust, and you trust in the technology and the partnership, that when you are ready to scale, that you have the opportunity to turn that on.
absolutely.
I love that. All right, Blake, talk to me about the benefits of unification and the impact it has in the warehouse.
Yeah, so unification plays a big role, certainly in the warehouse, and I'll give you maybe a couple of examples there. When we think about how transportation plays a role into yard and into warehouse, one of the big factors there is really the insights and information that we get from transportation around things coming to the building, right? So naturally, that starts with an accurate appointment schedule and allowing it to occur. And transportation does a great job working with carrier networks and vendor networks to really establish that far in advance. Now, things change day of course. There's traffic, there's other things. And so real-time ETA information drives the updated, dated, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute details.
Should we still call it ETA then? If we're that accurate,
It's still an ETA in my
I think
book.
we have to change it to something else, because that's estimated time of arrival, right?
Yeah, it's I'll be here then. We'll fix it.
Got it.
But no, leveraging the appointment schedule gives you the broader view day over day, but then getting down to that real-time over-the-road visibility gives you the hour-to-hour, the minute-to-minute. And all of that information is invaluable to the warehouse to understand, what am I actually going to have to do today, right? And so infusing that into, obviously from a yard perspective, getting those trailers in and rotated, but then all the way into the warehouse from a labor perspective, what am I actually going to be able to execute? Where do I need my employees? Where do I need my workers? Drives huge value. Now, then when we get into other aspects to it from an outbound perspective, having a unified transportation and warehouse solution offers additional benefits where you can actually optimize your trailers in a better fashion. So most transportation systems, and I'm going to speak for Bryant on this, most transportation systems will solve to, as best they can, a total liquid cube, liquid volume kind of component. Now, the reality of the warehouse is, you ordered 100 units, I'm going to ship 98, right? I'm going to cube it and pack it on these pallets in these ways. And all of that's determined by WM through whatever your business rules and your logic are.
Right.
Now, that allocation information, that cubing information is super rich and detailed, that really provides much more accurate information to the transportation planning process.
Yeah.
So driving and allowing for that information to go back from WM into transportation and shipment planning allows for us to have higher utilized trailers. And it's obvious, but we'll state it, right? The fuller the trailer, the fewer the miles, the less dollars you're spending on transportation costs. And in these days and ages, that's obviously the objective.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the transportation side, you said about collaborating with your partners. If you're able to turn those trailers and those trucks around, everybody's happy.
Absolutely.
Right?
And that's part of the collaboration is, when you're executing in supply chain or whether you're planning in supply chain, you have your partners that you work with, because not one solution does every single portion of everything that needs to be done in a supply chain. That's why you have the partners that you have. And keeping those lines of communication open is certainly great. But when you can automate it, it's even better.
Yeah.
So the information that's being exchanged on the Active platform is all good and well, but when we can surface that information to our partners, we're making that execution, that planning that much stronger. And you can rely on the data because it's more accurate, right?
Yeah.
So we're feeding more accurate information from warehouse to transportation because they have more granular insights into how a trailer is being packed. And we can share that with the stakeholders who are going to be executing that freight.
Amazing. So I think ETA should be replaced with ATA.
Yeah.
Accurate time of arrival. What do you think?
I like it. Sold.
Okay. I think we're going to have to
As long as it's
register.
unified, you got to put a U in there.
So
Unified, accurate time of arrival.
UATA. All right. Somebody's got to trademark that.
Yeah.
Well, Bryant and Blake, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.